President of Health, Safety, Security, and Environment of the Pertamina Hulu Energy, Ibu Dina Nurul Fitria, Member of the Board of Consumer Representative at the National Energy Council of Indonesia, Ibu Dermawati, from Director of CSR and Environmental of PT Indonesia Morowali Indonesia Park, or IMIP, and also Ms. Artemis Costarelli, the Nature Director of International Petroleum Industry Environmental Conservation Association. Good afternoon, boa tarde, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to join you today at the Indonesia Pavilion during the COP30 for this important dialogue on biodiversity action plans towards sustainable business. My sincere appreciation goes to the Pertamina for convening this session. This discussion reflects Indonesia's strong commitment to advancing climate change and biodiversity diplomacy in constructive and collaborative way, reinforcing our leadership in the UNFCCC negotiations and our readiness to work with the global community. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is entering a pivotal stage in its development. The next 2 decades will shape how we transform our economy while safeguarding natural capital and ensuring inclusive, equitable growth. The National Long-Term Development Plan outlines a vision of united, sovereign, advanced, and sustainable Indonesia, placing sustainability, resilience, and equity at the core. Environmental stewardship is seen as not as a barrier to growth, but also a prerequisite for long-term development and also prosperity. To realize this vision, climate action and biodiversity management are embedded in the Medium-Term Development Plan under the National Priority 2. Aligned with our NDC and the Indonesia Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, key indicators such as greenhouse gas emissions intensity reduction and biodiversity management index ensure the environmental goals are integrated into planning and budgeting toward Golden Indonesia 2045. Indonesia's commitment is further strengthened through the updated IPSAP launched in August last year. Fully aligned with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and Indonesia's second NDC, it provides a unified national direction that integrates biodiversity conservation with climate mitigation and adaptation. By reinforcing the climate biodiversity nexus and promoting a whole of government and whole of society approach, the IPSAP ensures healthy ecosystems, underpin our climate goals, and offers a clear roadmap for coordinated action and measurable results. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's exceptional biodiversity is both an ecological asset and a strategic economic driver. Protecting it supports innovation, new industries, and the growth of a nature-based economy. Under the Medium-Term Development Plan, the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sectors are projected to raise their GDP contribution, supporting Indonesia's pathway toward the 8% national growth target. This reflects the government commitment to positioning nature-based sectors as engines of sustainable and inclusive growth. Indonesia's natural capital also carries substantial value. In 2022, wild plants and animal species contributed to 10.88 trillion Indonesian rupiah. The tuna, skipjack, and mackerel production reached 39 trillion Indonesian rupiah. And the fishery sector generated over 32 billion US dollar annually. This number shows that investing in biodiversity is a strategic economic priority, strengthening resilience, competitiveness, and also long-term prosperity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, recent analysis by the Asia Investor Group on climate change underscores the urgency of strengthening the climate biodiversity agenda for the private sector. The study shows that 53% of Asia-Pacific economy is highly dependent on nature, meaning business productivity, supply chain stability, and financial performance are directly shaped by ecosystem health. When nature degrades, disruption translates into operational risk, cost for volatility, and also stranded assets, especially for companies whose value chains and raw materials rely on the natural capital. The biodiversity loss is therefore not only an environmental issue, but a core business risk. This finding highlights that businesses can no longer treat biodiversity as an externality. Dependence on ecosystem services such as water, soil fertility, pollination, coastal protection, and climate regulation means nature degradation threatens business continuity and long-term value. As scrutiny over nature-related risk grows, companies with extractive or high-impact models will face rising compliance costs, declining investor confidence, and greater exposure into the physical and transition risk. Conversely, companies that integrate biodiversity into procurement, supply chains, financial planning, and product development will strengthen their operations, competitiveness, and long-term resilience. To support sustainable business practices, Indonesia has established key instruments guiding the private sector. Mandatory sustainability reporting, enhanced transparency, and alignment with the ESG standards. The Indonesian Sustainability Taxonomy helps classify economic activities by environmental impact, encouraging low carbon and nature positive investments. The proper system publicly evaluates a corporate environmental performance, incentivizing continuous improvement. Together, these instruments ensure private sector growth aligns with Indonesia's long-term sustainability goals. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a shift toward nature-positive business model is essential. Companies must move beyond simply minimizing harm by adopting sustainable resource practices, restoring ecosystems, deploying low-carbon and circular technologies, reducing emissions across their value chains, and investing in long-term resilience through innovations, advanced technologies, and data-driven environmental management. 3 strategic actions can guide these transitions. First, businesses should embed biodiversity in core decision-making by implementing biodiversity action plan that manage biodiversity risk across operations and supply chains. Second, companies must translate commitments into measurable, scientific-based actions, supported by transparent monitoring and reporting. Third, advancing nature-positive development requires deeper collaboration on scaling up nature finance and stronger governance. Mobilizing investment through blended finance, green and blue bonds, biodiversity credits, and ecosystem service payments together with the government, financial institutions, academia, civil society, and local communities will drive restoration, share risk, and integrates biodiversity into broader development strategies. This collaboration must also address the enabling condition for nature-positive action, including stronger regulation, policy alignment, capacity building, community empowerment, knowledge sharing, and technological support. Furthermore, Indonesia stands ready to strengthen international partnerships. We welcome collaboration in scaling nature-positive investments, strengthening sustainable and responsible value chains, and supporting community-driven economic models. Together, we can build a future where economic growth and environmental stewardship reinforce one and another. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, Indonesia's transition to a climate resilience and nature-positive sustainable economy requires more than government action. The private sector plays a decisive role through its investment choices, resource management, and innovation. Biodiversity action plans will be a key link between national goals and corporate action, helping businesses stay competitive while supporting long-term national resilience. Let us move forward with a shared commitment to ensuring that economic progress strengthens the natural system that supports society. Nature positive development is not only achievable but essential for Indonesia's future and for global climate and biodiversity goals. Thank you. Terima kasih. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Anizar, for the keynote, and you also stay to present the panel. So, Anizar mentioned that sustainability is the prerequisite for long-term development, and therefore, nature conservation is essential and have to be integrated into the budgeting framework. So, our panel today will highlight the important points, such as the implementation or the importance of the conservation on biodiversity, and for the companies to set up the commitments and the goals to achieve or as a way towards sustainable business. We will work on the regulatory framework and the policy development on biodiversity conservation to achieve no net loss and have positive impact outcome, as well as the implementation on biodiversity action plans as a tool to address the complexity and as a way actually for the business, especially in the mining sector, to conserve the environment, the community, and also for the biodiversity itself. To lead the session, allow me to welcome our moderator. She is the senior expert of sustainability from the Pertamina Persero, Wahyu Dwi Astuti.
Thank you, Ibu Mona, as beautiful as always. So, distinguished keynote speaker, Bapak Nizar Marizi, thank you for the keynote speech, Pak. Distinguished speakers who join offline and online. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's panel discussion on Biodiversity Action Plan as a way towards sustainable business. I'm Wahyu Dwi Astuti, and I'll be your moderator for this session. As the global climate continues to shift, ecosystem face growing pressure. So rising temperatures, extreme weather, and changes in how land is used is breaking up natural habitats, so which puts both the biodiversity and people at risk. So today we'll explore how policymakers address biodiversity from energy sectors, how organizations can integrate Biodiversity Action Plan, known as BAP, into their business model, and how this approach can help drive sustainability while maintaining profitability, and what is the global challenge in regard of biodiversity. So now we're joined by a panel of experts who brings unique perspectives to this discussion, to whom I will introduce before they speak. So first we have Miss Artemis Costarelli. So Artemis Costarelli is Director for Nature at IPECA, overseeing biodiversity, ecosystem services, water management, circular economy, NBS and nature-related reporting. She represents IPECA at UN meetings and global forums, engaging with UNEP, CBD, NGOs, IUCN, and industry associations to promote good environmental practices in the oil and gas sector. In 2024, Artemis was seconded to Shell as a biodiversity advisor, working on North Sea Biodiversity Project and supporting regulatory reporting and disclosure. She joined IPECA in 2012 and previously held roles in fuels and products and supply chain. Before that, she worked in sustainability consulting in London and at the Ministry for Environment of Greece on forest and national parks management. Next, we have Dr. Dina Nurul Fitria. Dr. Dina is Dean of Faculty of Science, Engineering and Design, University of Trilogy, with respective lecturing experiences for more than 20 years. She is currently member of the Board of National Energy Council, or Dewan Energi Nasional, candidacy 2020 to 2025, who joined online. And then we have Bapak Devrinaldo, who is joined offline today. Hello, Pak. So, Bapak Devrinaldo is Vice President of Health, Safety, Security, and Environment PT Pertamina Hulu Energy, holds as a Bachelor's in Environmental Engineering and HSCC certification from the Fire Service College UK, has extensive working experience in subsidiaries of oil and gas industry, and collaborating with national and regional stakeholders for over 25 years of experience. Expertise in safety and process safety, asset integrity, environmental and risk management. He has also served as invited speaker at international forums, including the WSO International Award Ceremony and Safety Culture Award, and ESS workshop on sustainable infrastructure in Indonesia, and HSC project financing session for the GTB and Balikpapan RDMP project. And next we have Ibu Dermawati, currently serve as Director of CSR and Environmental PT Indonesia Morowali Indonesia Part or PT IMIP. So thank you all for being here, and we're looking forward to hear insight from you. So let's dive right in. So we'll begin with the presentation session. So each speaker will share their key insight and perspective for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we will continue with panel discussion. So for the first speaker, I would like to invite Artemis Costarelli. So Artemis, who is joined online. So Artemis, can you hear us clearly?
Hello everyone. Thanks first of all for the invite. Secondly, I cannot hear anything, but I realized that probably you did the introduction, so thank you for that. So I'm very glad to see that this important session is still and will still be accessible as a recording. And I must say that having been to the last two biodiversity COPs in Montreal and Cali, Colombia, it is the first time really that I see biodiversity action plans being discussed in a COP and even a climate COP. And in my view, this highlights the critical connection and significance of biodiversity conservation and climate change resilience. And thanks to Pertamina for putting this all together. So yes, probably the introductions have been made already. So I'm Artemis, Nature Director from IPICA. And for those that do not know much about IPICA, IPICA is the Global Oil and Gas Association for advancing the environmental and social performance across the energy transition. We were founded in 1974 at the request of the United Nations Environment Programme, and our role since then is twofold. The first role of IPICA is that we represent the oil and gas industry to the UN. And in fact, to this day, we remain the primary channel of communication between the UN and the industry on environmental and climate change issues. And our second role is that we develop and promote the good practice for the oil and gas industry and alternative energy sector across a range of sustainability topics, from carbon action to biodiversity, water and social performance, and sustainable development. But what has IPICA done on biodiversity so far? So we have been working on biodiversity and ecosystem services for more than actually 20 years. IPICA has been actively working to enhance biodiversity management in the energy industry's activities by bringing together the experience and scientific knowledge from within and outside the industry. So we do engage with other stakeholders like IUCN, Fauna and Flora, UNEP WCMC, for example. And we have more than 70 subject matter experts on biodiversity in the IPICA Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services Working Group. And over these years, we have developed a breadth of good practice guides from the best fundamentals, which is all about how a company can integrate best conservation considerations into their business management systems, to guidance on invasive alien species management in the industry. And in 2022, we developed and published the Biodiversity Action Plans guidance for the energy sector. So before coming to this session, I reviewed the commitments that some of IPICA members have made on biodiversity, specifically on BAPS. And it was quite positive to see that a lot of our members actually have made commitments around biodiversity action plans and net positive impacts on biodiversity. So just to say a few examples. So for example, I'll go first in Europe and then I'll go to Asia. So Shell has a commitment since 2022, which is to implement biodiversity action plans when operating in critical habitats. And of course, the aim of this is basically to achieve net positive impact on biodiversity in critical habitats. BP also talks about achieving net positive impact on biodiversity in new projects. Total Energies talk about managing biodiversity in new projects by implementing biodiversity action plans for all the new sites in specific areas categorized by the IUCN categories 1 to 5. And they will also deploy BAPS in Ramsar sites. They also have a commitment around BAPS on existing sites. Petrobras has also a commitment which talks about developing BAPS in all of their facilities by the end of 2025. And going to Asia, now Petronas aims to have biodiversity action plans for all existing sites within their operational control, rated very high or high risks, which include measures for ecosystem rehabilitation. And last but not least, Pertamina has also, you will know that better than me, but Pertamina has also been deploying BAPS for exploration projects in Kalimantan, in which they assess habitat sensitivity and they're implementing mitigation measures. BAPS also, which include concrete actions like planting thousands of trees in elephant corridors in Sumatra Island. And also I found another one which was very interesting, and in the offshore environment in Northwest Java, where also Pertamina developed a biodiversity action plan for marine and coastal biodiversity to go beyond compliance and align with ESG and SDGs goals. And of course, many other companies and members of IPICA have been deploying biodiversity action plans, and you can go through those examples and case studies on our BAP guidance, which is publicly available. These were some of the examples that I found online. So developing a biodiversity action plan is basically one approach that companies can take to manage biodiversity risks and ecosystem services that achieve no net loss and net positive impact or just conservation gain. It's the tool that companies use to achieve nature positive outcomes. A BAP sets out actions to mitigate impacts and to conserve or enhance biodiversity, and it identifies priority biodiversity features and detail appropriate management actions, which should be concrete, planned, and measurable. What we have in the IPICA BAP guidance is a get started guide on how companies can actually achieve no net loss and NPI by following the biodiversity action plan. So the key elements of a BAP are, first of all, the key steps are: one, to apply the mitigation hierarchy, so avoid, minimize, restore, and offset. And the mitigation hierarchy, it basically emphasizes that preventing negative impacts first through avoidance and minimization is the first key step before considering any actions related to restoration and then offsetting efforts. The second step is understanding your impacts, primarily the residual impacts of the project, and identify the priority biodiversity features. The third step is understanding the conservation priorities in the area a company operates, which is based on stakeholder engagement. And stakeholder engagement is a very key component of BAPs. And what the IPICA guidance emphasizes is that early and continuous stakeholder engagement to align conservation actions with local or national or international priorities is key to ensure that what actually you do for the conservation is what the area needs in a way. Oh, are you still there? I mean, the lights are off, I see. Okay, you're still there. Okay. So another thing that I would like to emphasize with the stakeholder engagement is that, as I said, it's a central feature of the BAP process. And another key element is that by engaging with stakeholders and consider them as potential partners throughout the process, from scoping to implementation, can be very useful because the stakeholders that you are talking to can review, monitor, and contextualize the shape of the BAP in partnership with your company and can provide different perspectives. And I can bring also my personal experience when I was at Shell and I was working in biodiversity programs in the North Sea. We engaged with a range of stakeholders, and it was a significant learning because we really understood the conservation priorities in the area. So, and thanks to that, Shell, when I was back at Shell, thanks to that, we managed to identify also potential partners that we can work with them and they can deliver the biodiversity program that Shell had. The fourth important element of a BAP is to conduct robust baseline surveys. So it's important to gather detailed data on biodiversity features, habitats, and ecosystems in the project area to understand the baseline conditions. And based on that, you can actually check down 20 years after whether you have actually achieved the net positive impact on biodiversity. And last but not least, there is a need for clear goals. So a BAP should define measurable goals for no-net loss and NPI, such as restoring a specific area of habitat or increasing populations of affected species. I mean, you know this very well, but for any biodiversity program, any restoration program, a BAP needs to secure that it has planned appropriately for resources and has secured the appropriate management. Restoration projects, you may know, are quite expensive. So it's good to identify early in the process the resources that are needed to implement the actions, the timelines, and these resources should include both financial elements, but also other resources like who is going to be involved from the teams, the competencies, the delivery partners, and so on. And the very last step of that, of a BAP, is there is a need to have a monitoring and reporting program in place, and of course a verification process, and possibly by a third party, which will verify that basically the net positive impact on biodiversity has been achieved. And I'll leave it to that. This was more like a very quick overview of our BAP guidance here at IPICA.
And then we will continue with the next speaker. So next we'll hear from Bapak Devrinaldo, who will share his perspective about strategy and challenges in implementing biodiversity action plan for existing and new projects in sensitive area. So Pak Aldo, kindly proceed with your remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Tuti and my dear Pak Nizar Marizi. Thank you very much for the great speaker. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, all the distinguished guests, colleagues and friends. Maybe you can show the slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, Indonesia is one of the beautiful country in the world, as recognized as second mega biodiversity country, and encompassing two of the world 36 biodiversity hotspot. Can we see that slide? Yeah, we have orang utan in Kalimantan or Borneo Island. We have Sumatra tiger. We have Sumatra elephant in the Sumatra Islands. So, which is noticed in the ICN red lines species. Pertamina Hulu Energy is one of the subsidiary national energy company. We covering onshore, offshore, and coastal operation across of Indonesia. As a state on the enterprise, our charge is clear: how safeguard national energy security when we delivery business of exploration and productions. In this spaces, PHA face the global challenge, the climate change, biodiversity loss, fragmented habitat, and of course development pressures. If left unmanaged, those force transfer to the operational risk, conflict, delays, and then the higher cost. At the same time, global expectations has moved decisively under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The energy company expected not only avoid harm, but to deliver measurable nature positive impact with the transparent design, delivery that can impact at source, address residuals, and restore ecosystem. For PHA, nature and business go together. Next, we will show how PHA turn this context in actions. Our sustainability policy places protection biodiversity among our core focuses. Practically, that's mean to clear committed every facility since 2020 is governed by NPI-oriented biodiversity action plan, and we try to reach 100% cover 2030. In parallel, we design conservation area and run flora and fauna conservation program across our facility. In 2025, almost 29 our working area and more than 48,000 hectare. At PHA, we use in-house screening tool, preliminary assessment biodiversity action plan. At the first, before any project proceed. Pre-BAP is implemented to identify biodiversity sensitive to propose project and determine whether the project location require BAP. Before any project proceed, Our PHA runs a preliminary assessment biodiversity action plan to decide what level the biodiversity planning is required. We look through 5 lenses. 3 lenses is mandatory because of regulatory, license requirement, and third-party requirement. Third-party requirements such as partner or lenders. And the second one is biodiversity values, presence of protected area and ecological sensitive area. And the last one is social, economic, and of course the cultural factor. But one thing that we consider organization purpose. Under organization purpose that present an explicit mandate from our mother company renders the project BFP necessary. In the absence of such mandate is considered with proportional biodiversity measures. So, what is the biodiversity action plan? Biodiversity action plan is site levels, strategic planning to identify, protect, and restore and manage biodiversity, critical habitat, and rare species and key ecosystem. Is deliver data-driven, KPI-based action, and co-deliver and co-design with the local communities and the local authorities. Today, PHA has 8 biodiversity action plan across our regional operation from Sumatra, Jawa, and then Borneo or Kalimantan and east of of Indonesia. One of our biodiversity action plan is Jambaran Tiung Biru is required by third party. I mean that lenders exactly required. Why? Because the project financing applies in the Jambaran Tiung Biru. PHA applies the mitigation hierarchy in all BAPs that I mentioned before. The expectation of the energy company not only avoid harms but not net losses achievement, but in advance we have to get the net positive impact as the company mandate. We know that the speaker says before that we have 5 mitigation hierarchy, and PHA try to minimum implemented 3 top hierarchy of mitigation: restoration, offset, and ACA, additional conservation activity. Next, let me concrete the 2 portfolio of biodiversity action plan, PHA NWJ and PEP Pendopo Field. Next slide, please. Yeah, let me illustrate how BAP translate to delivery into working area, PHA NWJ, offshore, marine, and coastal, and PEP Pendopo Field, onshore and terrestrial. For PHA on WJ, our objective is reach net positive impact in 2028. We model existing forecast versus forecast condition and focus on 4 high leverage program. North Coast Java mangrove restoration. The hierarchy we know the restoration and offset. Transplantation, coral reef and fish in Sendulang. Hierarchy 4, offset. Conservation effort of housebill sea turtle. Hierarchy ACA, additional conservation activity. And the last one, MIMI conservation program, is hierarchy ACA, additional conservation activity. For PEP Pendopo, our objective is reach net positive impact 2029. Focus in the Sumatra elephant hen habitat conservation program and Boolean forest conservation program. For those examples show that how PHE use BAP to translate commitment into measurable outcomes across our land and our sea. Program under Biodiversity Action Plan are developed, are designed with the local communities and deliver partnership with the local authorities and natural resource conservation agency to ensure align with the national objective. Next slide please. Building on those examples, let me connect to the dot on how we integrate biodiversity into the way we run the business through sustainable development triple bottom line. Environmental protection. We operate within ecological limits through Biodiversity Action Plan. We set a target KPI monitoring to deliver non-net loss as a baseline and achieve net positive impact as the mandate. Social equity. We co-design, co-develop and deliver with the local communities and partner with the local authorities and natural resource conservation agency. Economic growth. Strong biodiversity management can reduce disruption, permitting risk, and protect our license to operate and create durable values for shareholder and society. Protecting biodiversity is not our responsibility, but is our resilient strategy and core business enabler. The business value is clear. We contribute to Indonesian SDG, IBICP goals, and national nature positive agenda. We strengthen reputation and stakeholder trust, including investor and regulator. And we build the government and data system needed for the credible future pathways, such as carbon, biodiversity, and nature credits. Next slide, please. Allow me to close our key takeaway and next step. First, commitment. PHE is committed to achieving net positive impact through systematic biodiversity action plan implementation across portfolio. Second, this is core business enabler. Sustainability and biodiversity protection are how we reduce disruption and permitting risk and protect our license to operate and strengthening reputation and trust, not just a compliance exercise. That's how we deliver. Every program we co-design, co-develop with the local communities and partnership with the local authorities and resources with Natural Resources Conservation Agency, ensuring share benefit and strong project acceptance. 4. How we profit. We track qualities progress with KPIs and disclose the result so impact is credible and transparent. We will deepen monitoring and assurance, scale innovation, expand partnership with the government, academia, industry, and communities, aligning with Indonesia IBICAP and Global Nature Positive by 2030 pathway toward the GBF vision of living in harmony with nature by 2050. Our business thrive when the nature thrive. PHE is building legacy of energy that sustain both people and planet. We will embed net positive impact in every project and co-manage with the local communities and partnership with the local authorities and report transparently. So energy security and thriving ecosystem advance together. Thank you very much. Is my last slide. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Aldo. If I might highlight your points that upstream activities of Pertamina Hulu Energy are carried out throughout Indonesia, and it's a huge magnitude. Along with Indonesia richness of biodiversity, that it has to be conducted without compromising its richness of biodiversity. So your pra-BAP or preliminary BAP helps to screen the biodiversity sensitivities to determine whether a project requires a BAP or not, and some biodiversity action plans with net positive impact target that have been committed by Pertamina Hulu Energy. I think the methodology is also aligned with the methodology explained by IPK, Artemis. Thank you. We'll come back to you with the discussion. And next, I'd like to invite Ibu Dina Nurul Fitria, who will share about mainstreaming nature into national energy policy. So the time is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and partners. I'm Dina Nurul Fitria, members of the Board National Energy Council. Today, I would deliver my presentations in video tapping via Zoom. Due to yesterday force majeure that Blue Zone is closed for the investigation after fire situation. So my today presentation should be in mainstreaming nature into national energy policy. It is an hour to speak on behalf of Indonesia National Energy Council, Dewan Energi Nasional, an institution mandated to ensure that our nation's energy policies are secure, sustainable, and aligned with the long-term well-being of our people. Today, I wish to share Indonesia's perspective on the energy transition and our commitment to biodiversity protection, energy security, economic resilience, and high-integrity climate cooperation under Article 6. Thanks to Mr. Nizi for your keynote speech from Bappenas, and thanks to Pak Aldo and delegates for this session also, and thanks to parties such as honorable speakers from international speakers and our colleagues from Indonesia. Mandate of the Energy Council, Dewan Energi Nasional, Indonesia is entrusted with shaping, harmonizing, overseeing of national energy policy and the national energy plan. Our responsibility is not only technical, it is profoundly also ethical. We must guarantee that every Indonesian household, every small business, every farmer, every fisherman, and every worker in the fossil fuel sector has access to reliable and affordable energy while we build a low-emission resilient national energy system. Our President, Mr. Prabowo, His Excellency, mandated to our national energy planning that we have to make sure that achieve energy independence and national energy security also fulfill Indonesia's commitment, thereby strengthen national climate resilience and support the advancement of economy. And regarding this national energy planning, our approach is grounded in science, economics, and social justice. We aim to balance national sovereignty, environmental protection, and the realities of a developing archipelagic nation. That's why in our government regulation number 40 2025 on national energy policy, the green strategy in place with maximize new old and renewable energy and also minimize the use of fossil energy and for the energy transition to reach peak emissions by 2035 and also net zero emissions by 2060. Regarding this reference, so renewable energy mix targets should be 19% up to 23% by 2030 and 70% up to 72% by 2060. So there is a lot of investment and so funding needed to make sure the target is in place. So funding for energy, sector decarbonization, and energy resilience through national state budget, regional state budget, and other national and international sources coming through. So support for financing private entities and also compensation for state-owned enterprise that is mandated to Pertamina and also PLN in make sure the energy transition and energy resilience program in place. So preparation and improvement of human resources capacity in energy transition programs. And beside all above, the important things is international cooperation and diplomacy to strengthen Indonesia's energy leadership position. Energy transition should be maintained also for the biodiversity as a vital asset for the energy transition. Indonesia is one of the world's most biodiverse nations. Our forests, mangroves, peatlands, coastal ecosystems, and marine resources are not only national treasures, they are global climate stabilizers. Therefore, biodiversity is not an optional add-on to energy policy, it is an essential strategic foundation. As presentation mentioned, this one is such as like for wind and for the geothermal, we have the realizations targeted for ambitious targeted. This is 2,743 for geothermal and 1,052 for wind resources. That is the biodiversity side should be there. Protection is not optional add-on to energy policy. It is an essential strategic foundation. As we expand renewable energy, develop mineral-based industries, and modernize our grid, Indonesia is committed to avoiding trade-offs and would degrade high-value ecosystems. We are strengthening governance to ensure that land use decisions, licensing processes, and energy investment protect biodiversity, uphold community rights, and also minimize ecological fragmentation. We have also published and submitted the alignment of second NDC. So our National Energy Council strive to align what is the second NDC targeted and also for the energy planning. So The nature-based solutions, forest protection, peatland restoration, coastal resilience are central pillars of our climate and energy pathway. In the LCCP low scenario or low national energy planning scenario and high national energy planning scenario, it shows that the level of GHG emissions in the energy sectors is still 129 million tons of CO2, where negative emissions from the forestry and land use sectors will be able to absorb to reach net zero emission in 2060 or sooner. The forestry sector has already not sink carbon in 2030. And that's why CPOE's current policy scenarios for CM1 of N. In this scenario, mitigation efforts are in accordance with domestic resource capabilities following historical trends between 2011 up to 2020 period, which increased during NDC implementation in 2020 up to 2030 period, it extended to 2035. It is because our government targeted to aim with 8% economic growth. So it is assumed at in 2030 and 70% in 2035. So Indonesia's energy mix is undergoing a strategic transformation. Our goals are clearer: reduce carbon intensity, diversity our supply, strengthen domestic value chains, and ensure remains affordable and accessible for all. So to make sure that ambitious target in place, in national energy planning, government regulation number 40 year of 2025, we propose we regulate the carbon tax and performance-based incentives or payment for GHG emissions reduction efforts in the energy sectors. The Article 83, the central government may impose carbon tax on the utilization of renewable energy to be implemented gradually with due consideration of social, economic, and environmental impacts. The imposition of the carbon tax shall be carried out in accordance with the laws and regulations in the field of taxation. Article 84, the central government, regional governments, hand in hand with the business entities, may obtain incentive or performance-based payments for efforts to reduce GHG emissions in the energy sector. And for the provision of incentives or performance-based payments for efforts to reduce GHG emissions in the energy sector should be implemented in accordance with the provisions of national energy planning and also laws and regulation in regional area. So regarding the collaboration in Article 6 implementation for the biodiversity impact, we here at the COP30, Indonesia proposed a framework for just and inclusive transition. As COP30 hosts promote the concept of solusi dialogue, so Indonesia sees strong alignment with our own vision. Balanced solutions emphasize equity, inclusion, indigenous leadership, and nature-based resilience. These principles resonate deeply with Indonesia's approach. So that's why we need the pentaholic approach. We propose just transition means strengthening community participation, ensuring fair benefit sharing from carbon finance and renewable energy investments, protecting forest, peatlands, and marine ecosystems, and ensuring that vulnerable groups, households, MSMEs, farmers, fishermen, and workers are protected during this transformation. So the collaboration should be in global wide also. The global south must work together to ensure that our transitions are not only low carbon, but also pro-poor, pro-nature, and pro-development. So we propose, Excellency, that energy transitions cannot succeed if it undermines national resilience. Indonesia approach clean energy not as a cost, but as investment in long-term security and prosperity. Indonesia optimized the utilization of energy and mineral resources as natural resources in a sustainable manner to make sure integrity in offsetting the remaining greenhouse gas emissions from the energy sector. So today in COP30, Indonesia stands ready to collaborate with global partners to mobilize finance, technology, and capacity building for genuine, measurable climate progress. We call for increased concessional finance for emerging economies, fair and predictable Article 6 rules, high integrity carbon market cooperation, and South-to-South partnerships that will elevate our collective capabilities. We believe that global climate solutions must not only reduce emissions, they must limit this, protect nature, and strengthen economic resilience. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, and participants, let me end the presentation because I have to catch up my flight right away. So Indonesia's energy transition is not merely a climate agenda, it is national development agenda rooted in sovereignty, biodiversity protection, economic stability, and social justice. With strong governance, inclusive participation, and integrity-driven cooperation, we believe that Indonesia can of a just, resilient, and sustainable energy in the future. So I thank you. I look forward to our continued collaboration. Obrigado, de nada, terima kasih, thank you, all the best luck for us.
Okay, thank you Ibu Dina. So Ibu Dina is highlighting Indonesia's national energy policy with grand strategies in the new regulation, maximize new and renewable energy, minimize the use of fossil energy, and optimize the use of gas as a transition fuel. There is a need to achieve this energy self-sufficiency, but it shall be done without compromising Indonesia's biodiversity. Next, I would like to invite Ibu Dermawati, who will share about bridging industry and nature, strengthening ecosystem connectivity through PT IMIP's biodiversity program. So Ibu Dermawati, the time is yours.
Good day everyone, it's an honor to be here in Beleng for COP30. My name is Dermawati, I'm from PT IMIP, Indonesia Morowali Industrial Park. Today I want to talk about how we are bridging the gap between heavy industry and nature. Our topic today is strengthening ecosystem connectivity through IMIP Biodiversity Program. We are bringing the story of Morowali, Indonesia to the heart of the Amazon to share our commitment to a sustainable future. Next slide, please. As we gather here, connecting Indonesia and Brazil, we recognize a shared responsibility. IMIP is a key player in the global nickel supply chains, which fuel the world's journey toward renewable energy. However, we face a dual challenges, maintaining rapid industrial growth while addressing the climate crisis. We do understand that development can lead to ecological fragmentation. That is why we have launched our Biodiversity Action Plan. These are not just policies, they are a science-based blueprint designed to protect critical habitat and endangered species within our operational footprint. Next slide, please. Our biodiversity management plan is strictly aligned with national legislation and international finance cooperation. We can see here, we move beyond basic greening to comprehensive rehabilitation. Our strategy stands on 4 pillars. The first one is biodiversity studies. The second one is the EduPark, a 23-hectare hub for research and conservation. The third one is natural wildlife conservation, which is establishing specific zones for Sulawesi endemic species. And the last one is coastal and marine conservation, restoring mangrove and coral reef to support climate action. Next slide, please. This is the biodiversity studies overview because we cannot manage what you do if not measured. We began with extensive habitat mapping and ecological baseline studies with an expert, and it conducted across 11 terrestrial and 9 marine sampling points. This result revealed a rich biodiversity around our industrial park. There are 160 flora species, 81 bird species, and 55 coral fish species, and critical number of mammal and herpetofauna. This data forms the foundation of our biodiversity management plan. Next slide, please. This is the endemic flora. Let's look closer at the flora. Out of the 160 species identified, 5 of them are endemic to our region. Crucially, we found species like Dillenia celebica and Sarcoteca celebica present at all sampling points. Some of these, like the kejelbergi or jambu-jambuan in our language, are specific to this landscape. Our goal is to ensure these unique genetic resources remain viable alongside our operation. Next slide, please. This is in terms of herpetofauna, the stakes are high. We identify 11 endemic species. I want to draw your attention to Okidozyga tempotica. We found this species at one specific location and is classified as critically endangered. We also monitor Sophenomorphus tropidonotus. This finding drives the specific placement of our conservation zone. Next slide, please. This is the endemic bird. Our skies are equally diverse. Of 81 bird species, where 35 are endemic. Species like Dicaceum aurolimbatum or yellow-sided flowpecker are found across multiple sites. While many are currently least concerned, their abundance is a bioindicator of ecosystem health that we are committed to maintain. Next slide. This slide highlights the most critical aspect of our terrestrial conservation. We host 10 endemic mammal species. We have recorded footprint of the anoa, which is endangered. We also host the Sulawesi tarsius and the macaca. Protecting this species is not optional, it's a priority for IMIP. Next slide, please. And the conservation is an ongoing process. In the Tabo protected area, is a forest area near IMIP, we practice adaptive management. We continuously track biodiversity indicator, monitoring 24 plant species and various animal classes. If the data shows ecological changes, we adjust our management strategies immediately. We don't just set the plan and forget it. We evolve with the data that we found in the field. Next slide, please. This slide will show the translocation of Macaca tonkeana because sometimes active intervention is necessary to reduce human-wildlife conflict. In collaboration with BKSDA, the Natural Resource Conservation Center, Also with the community alongside in our park, we successfully translocated a group of macaca tonkeana. In April 2024, 24 individuals were safely moved to Tokobay Wildlife Sanctuary. This ensured their safety while allowing industrial operation to proceed responsibly. Next slide, please. And this is the slide of the IMIP Edu Park. Part of Nature Wildlife Conservation is show our flagship terrestrial project, the IMIP Edu Park, originally planned as a small arboretum. It has evolved into a 23-hectare integrated center. It includes a horticultural garden, a greenhouse nursery, environmental lab, and a waste management system. It serves two purposes. The first one is strictly complying with green open space regulation, and the second one is acting as a local plant seed bank for our land rehabilitation effort. Next slide. Okay, now we're moving from land to sea. We operate along the rich coast of Morowali or Sombori Island. We recognize the potential of blue carbon. Our focus is on mangrove rehabilitation on coral reef restoration. We start this project since 2022. I am proud to report that our coral reef rehabilitation project have achieved of 92% survival rate. This is tangible evidence of our long-term commitment. Next slide, please. Now here you can see the scale of our mangrove effort. Between 2018 and 2025, we have planted over 70,000 mangroves. You can see significant spike in activity in 2003 and 2024. The nearly 20,000 planted each year. This is not just about number, it's about carbon. This mangrove represents a potential absorption of over than 8,800 tons of CO2 equivalent. And next slide, please. And this is 2025. IMIP expanding its environmental commitment beyond our immediate industrial area. We are undertaking a project in Brebes, Central Java, together with the local community, planting 3,000 seedling. Next. And in Palu, Central Sulawesi, we plant another 10,000 seedling last month. By using digital platform like Mangrove Tech, we ensure transparency and traceability in our carbon absorption calculation. This is part of our target of 150,000 seedling that we want to plant. Next. Now we're returning to the Sombori Island. Our coral restoration uses both table and reef star method. But more importantly, we are empowering the local community. We have trained local cadre conservation and held tourism workshop. We believe that for conservation to be sustainable, the local community must be guardian of their own environment. Next. And this is the last one. The future project is a wildlife conservation area. Looking ahead, we know that endemic animals are vulnerable to habitat loss. To address this, IMIP is formally planning to allocate specific conservation zone within our concession. This nature wildlife conservation area will provide a permanent natural habitat for the endemic species we discussed earlier, ensuring they have a home amidst industrial development. Ladies and gentlemen, IMIP Industrial might not only about producing nickel. It's about shaping Indonesia's sustainable destiny, from mangrove of Morowali to the forest protecting our endemic macacas. These efforts are an irreversible commitment. As we stand here at COP30, we believe industry must act as nature steward. We are building a living model where economic growth harmonizes with life on Earth. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Looking forward to see discussion with you.
So thank you Ibu Dermawati for sharing the biodiversity done by PT IMIPS and the action plan, the nature wildlife conservation, coastal marine conservation, through mangrove rehabilitation and community-based conservation, and soon to have the biodiversity park or Edu Park IMIP. So I think we have heard five powerful perspectives from policymaker, industries, and the international organization. Let's now move into a short discussion with the speakers. So I would like to address this question first to Artemis. Artemis, are you still with us? Hello? So, am I audible to you? Can you hear us? Am I audible, Artemis? Okay. Is there a problem with the... Okay, can you hear us? Okay. If it's still difficult, maybe I can... Okay. It's we have some difficulties with the online speakers, so I would love to ask this question first to Paldo then. Paldo, in your presentation you mentioned about the preliminary BAP, the six point to do the pre-BAP, and it's interesting that you also mentioned about the social, economic, and cultural factor is being considered in the pra-BAP. So could you elaborate more on this aspect and the example of the situation that you face and what is the action plan?
Yeah, okay, thank you. In the pre-BIP stage, social, economy, and cultural factor is considered to assess, to ensuring that project planning not only about ecological sound, but we protecting well-being and resilience local communities. Referring to biodiversity action plan in the PHE, NWJ, and PAP Pendopo fields, we look deep how community social conditions are connected to the surrounding natural resources. For example, in PHE NWJ, we can say that coastal communities is highly depend on the mangrove and fisheries. It's not only about income, source of income, but is about how long-term economic resilience for them. And the Pendopo fields, we know that our activities interact with the movement corridor of Sumatran elephants and Burian forests are the function both critical habitat and then customary forests with deep social and cultural significance for the local communities. Our action is yearly transparent engagements, how we involve the communities and then the local institutions to ensure that implementation are proceed in line with the local communities' expecting and interest. And the second one's that co-design conservation measures such as mangrove restoration that I have said before, elephant corridor protection, and collaborative management of the Burian forest to that ecological benefits are achieved parallelly with social and economic benefit for the local communities. And the dirt adjusting project designed to strengthen local livelihood is prevent to potential conflict and enhance long-term acceptance of conservation program. So by grounding our conservation activities in the prevailing social, economic, and cultural realities, our pathway toward net positive income become more robust. So this is how durable outcomes are created, delivering benefit for people and planet then at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Pak. So it is important to assess not only the ecological value, yeah?
Correct.
Because biodiversity actually related to the social economy. If we maintain the biodiversity risk,
It
means we maintain also the social economy of the local communities. And the cultural factor, it is interesting, yeah. So it is also related to local community, and it can avoid potential conflict, something like that, yeah. Okay, thank you, Pak Aldo. And next, I would like to ask Pak Nizar. Pak Nizar, thanks for staying with us, Pak. So, Pak Nizar, based on your point of view, how can partnership, so between government that strive to achieve the energy self-sufficiency and the industries and the international organization accelerate the biodiversity outcomes? What actually is the expectation from the government? Over to you.
Thank you. So, when we talk partnership, they can be accelerating the biodiversity outcome. If we, in the sustainability issue, we always have that we have a different but common but differentiated responsibilities between the government, the companies, and also with the international organizations. But when it comes to capabilities, the capabilities are also different, but it is complementary. For the government will set provide the direction and also the enabling policies, while the private sector will brings the investment, technology, and also how to influence the operation more green. And also the international organizations will provide us the science, the standard, and also the global best practices. And when these three align, the biodiversity effort that we want to conserve and also to speed up the sustainable use of biodiversity will become more faster, more scalable, and also measurable. And in Indonesia, this collaboration is especially critical for sectors like Pertamina, an oil and gas company, because the operations is near the high value ecosystems. So the strong biodiversity action plans, also the consistent application of mitigations, and also transparent in reporting, and also the increasing the nature positive investment will be essential for these efforts. And as the government, we expect that the companies will continue to integrating the biodiversity as the core of the decision making and also in operations. While we at the government side, we also improving the policies, certainty, national planning, and also access to nature financing. And together, I think this partnership will deliver the real biodiversity gains and supporting Indonesia to paving our pathway to the sustainability and also resilience economy.
Thank you, Pak. And that's interesting. So I would come back to Pak Aldo. In response to this, Pak, so how does that align with what you see in the field to answer the expectation from the government?
Yeah, as they mentioned, the government's perspective, the mandate for the Pertamina is not only about how we safeguard the national energy security, but also accelerating positive income for the biodiversity. As my presentation has said that the global biodiversity framework expected to the energy company not only avoid harms, but also to deliver the measurables net positive outcomes. So, for example, in the PHA, we have delivered in the translate to the systematic practice. What I said that we implemented the pre-assessment biodiversity action plan for the PHA, ONWJ, and the PEP Pendopo fields.
So it can be done aligned with the expectation from the government.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Right,
you.
yeah.
I think we have a limited time, so the time is up. So we've heard some truly valuable insight today from the regulatory frameworks, the global challenge, and the strategic importance of biodiversity in business to the practical steps. Before we finish, I would like to take the key takeaway from this panel discussions. So related to the energy self-sufficiency, yes, we need to achieve this, but without compromising Indonesia's biodiversity. Industries have the commitment to fulfill the expectation from the government in respect to the richness of biodiversity through BAP. Partnership and collaboration between government, industry, and international organization is pivotal to accelerate biodiversity outcomes. And biodiversity is not just protecting nature. It's about ensuring the long-term sustainability and resilience of our company and our communities. So I'd like to thank to our keynotes and speaker, Pak Nizar, Ibu Dina, Pak Aldo, Ibu Dermawati, Artemi for the thoughtful contribution and your engagement to the questions. So let's continue to take actions because a sustainable business is one that thrives alongside nature, not apart from it. So thank you everyone. Please give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, congratulations PT Pertamina for flexing the mitigation effort of biodiversity not to focus only to avoid or minimize the biodiversity loss, but also compensate, restore, and add more conservation actions, and also when building above, also engage, co-design it, as you said, with local communities. So optimize their local knowledge and ensure the local community's interest as well. So Pertamina is not only engaging biodiversity conservation as a compliance matter, but also a reason for the business to thrive.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I do apologize for the technical glitch we experienced. We have to run and operate with the limited sources that we have. But we thank you for watching. See you next time. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to serve as a moderator for this session. As a Vice Chair of the Forestry Interim Secretariat of the International Tropical Peatland Center, I sincerely hope that our discussion today will contribute to a shared understanding of the key challenges and opportunity in integrating financing for the peatland restoration within a global carbon market framework. We will also learn from the lesson and also best practices drawn from the IPPC member country. To begin our discussion, I'm pleased to introduce all of the panelists in the stage, starting with Dr. Martin Klaus. He is the director of the Climate Change Division at the United Nations Environment Program. And then Amy Dussel. She is the senior forest officer, head of forest and climate division, in FAO. And also Professor Simon Lewis. He is a head of Congo Peat Project. Professor Mitsuru Osaki, expert from the Japan, JICA, and also president of the Japan Peatland Society. Last but not least, Dr. Franziska Tanneberger, the director of the Griswold Meyer Center, Germany. And we have one panelist who will join us via video recording. Her name is Dr. Dian Novariana, Vice Chair of the Indonesian Forest Conservationers Association of Indonesia. Before we start, we have a keynote speaker, Professor Haruni. She is the senior advisor for the Ministry of Forestry of the Government of Indonesia. Please, Ibu Prof.
Thank you, Pak Bambang. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a true honor to be here today among partners and experts who share a strong commitment to protecting and sustainably managing the world's tropical peatlands. Today, as a nation seeks new pathways to economic growth while controlling the climate change, tropical peatlands stands at a unique intersections of opportunity and responsibility. They offer immense economic potential, supporting livelihoods, strengthening green industry, and creating jobs. But they also hold one of the world's largest natural carbon store, and protecting them is essential for our climate. For us, this is especially important. Under Indonesia Follow Net Sink 2030 agenda, peatlands are a core pillar of emission reduction. More than 70% of Indonesia peatlands lie within forest area, making sustainable peat swamp forest management and peatland restoration central to reaching our net sink target by 2030. This is why investing in peatlands must be more than short-term gain. The true value lies in how much carbon, biodiversity, and resilience we preserve for future generations. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, collaboration between science and practice and between nations united by shared responsibility is very important. Together, we can advance a vision where peatlands are no longer seen as wasteland to be drained, but as living assets that are vital for economic resilience and global climate commitments. Allow me to share three brief reflections on investing responsibility in peatland. First, invest in restoration and protections. Climate finance, whether through carbon markets, green bonds, or result-based payment, must make conservation economic viable. And second, empower communities. People living in and around peatlands are the true guardians of this ecosystem. So supporting secure land tenure, sustainable livelihoods, and capacity building is essential for long-term protection. And third, bridge science and policy. Effective investments must be grounded in accurate mapping, hydrological monitoring, and adaptive management. Under Follow Net Sink 2030, Indonesia is scaling peatland monitoring and fire prevention system to ensure integrity and sustainability. And ladies and gentlemen, as the world accelerates towards net zero, tropical peatlands can lead the way as one of the most powerful natural climate solutions and a foundation for sustainable development. If we align finance, policy, and community actions, we can unlock the true value of peatlands not as land to exploit, but as ecosystem that sustain us all. Let us continue moving forward hand in hand with knowledge, integrity, and hope. Because protecting peatlands is not only about saving nature, it is about securing our shared future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Haruni. Let me brief the outline, the format for the today discussion. Each panelist have only 5 minutes to talk and also use presentation. For the presentation, maximum for 7 minutes. And followed by question from the moderator, only one question. Then I will make a summarize of this discussion. Then the discussion will be ended. So let me start for the first presentation. Dr. Martin Klaus, the Director of the Climate Change Division at the UNEP, to share his insight on South-South cooperation in advancing climate diplomacy and supporting peatland management. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and very happy to be part of this panel and this discussion. And I'm also happy that here at the COP30 we are actually talking about peatlands. We are not at the biodiversity COP, we are at the climate COP, but we are talking about peatlands, and that I believe is very important. Why? Because peatlands are unique ecosystems. Peatlands are storing vast amounts of carbon, they're regulating water systems, they are supporting rich biodiversity, and they are sustaining the livelihoods of millions of people. So the Global Peatland Initiative, called also the GPI, is an effort of governments, experts, institutions that was created I think about 9 or 10 years ago at another COP, COP22, I believe it was. So this initiative was created to restore and sustainably manage peatlands. In these 9 years since the creation of the Global Peatland Initiative, the initiative has grown and has now 63 members across 23 countries. And it is providing direct support to countries such as Peru, Indonesia, the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it has also recently expanded its work to include Mongolia and Colombia. The initiative is working in 4 priority areas, and that is number 1, science, mapping and assessment, number 2, knowledge sharing and capacity building, number 3 is policy and advocacy, and number 4 is the implementation of specific actions at the country level. So I will very quickly say something about 2 of those areas. The assessment that we have been doing in this area has shown that despite only covering about 3 to 4% of the planet's land surface, peatlands actually contain up to 1/3 of the world's soil carbon. That's a lot if you think about it, for that small surface to contain 1/3 of the world's soil carbon. We also have found that 50 million hectares of peatlands are already drained and degraded. When degraded, peatlands shift from becoming a carbon sink to becoming a carbon source. So they are being reversed in the global system on how carbon is emitted and how it is being absorbed. And that is why it is so important also to talk about peatlands here. UNEP has been accelerating actually through South-South cooperation, and that was actually also the question and is the topic here, has been accelerating by strengthening countries and institutions with technical capacity building, helping to align policies and inspiring collective action. to work at scale and to speed to tackle the crisis of climate change, the Global Peatland Initiative uses the South-South cooperation modality for engaging and sharing knowledge across countries and institutions. We also appreciate that Indonesia is continuing to share their own experience of peatland management, and Indonesia's collaboration with the Global Peatland Initiative, including its leadership in establishing and strengthening the International Tropical Peatland Center, the ITPC, is very valued and very welcomed. I will say now, just to conclude, a few words about another important aspect of our discussion here, and that is financing and sustainable financing. Amongst other work that is needed, UNEP and the Global Peatland Initiative have supported the development of key economic and finance knowledge products, and those have been published also in, for example, the Economics of Peatland report, or another UNEP flagship report called the State of Finance for Nature report. Indonesia actually has strong examples of using blended finance in a number of peatland projects. For example, the ongoing peat project in Riau and West Kalimantan, which blends funds from the Green Climate Fund and other donors through partnerships with NGOs, and also crowding in money from the private sector on agroforestry projects that do not drain or degrade peatlands. So we have some good examples on financing. We have some good examples on South-South knowledge sharing, and this is, I think, kind of the way that we should continue going. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Klaus, for the highlighting the role of the South-South cooperation in boosting climate diplomacy and also securing finance for sustainable peatland initiative. We will now hear from our next panelist. The second speaker is Amy Dussel. She is the Senior Forestry Officer, Team Leader Forest Climate at FAO. She will talk about the lesson from the FAO forestry program to support emission reduction from FOLU, especially in the tropical peatland country. Dear Amy, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih, Pak. Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Yes. It's a pleasure to be here, and really I thank the government of Indonesia, UNEP, and the other co-organizers of this event for including FAO. FAO is a proud early member of the Global Peatlands Initiative, and it's been a really wonderful way to collaborate on this important issue and really raise attention together as a collective. I'd also like to echo Martin's comments about how really this COP has absolutely elevated this issue, including through the COP30 action agenda, where the peatland breakthrough was considered a key solution under access 2 of the agenda on stewarding forests, oceans, and biodiversity. And that's really important because it had sort of all eyes on peatlands. I think we already heard from the director at UNEP how important peatlands are for climate change mitigation, adaptation, and of course biodiversity conservation. I won't repeat that, but it's just, you know, it's a sort of an unknown in a way. This massive carbon sink that we're still refining the understanding of, and how easily it does in fact become a source as peatlands are degraded. So absolutely, and we're here with the experts who will really, you know, delve into that much more deeply. So I certainly won't do that. But what FAO has really tried to focus on in this collective space is bolstering peatland measurement and monitoring, especially working hand in hand with countries on, you know, integrating peatlands into national forest monitoring systems and trying to improve measurement, reporting, and verification of peatlands. You know, this includes integration of peatland base maps and assessment of activity data, systems to monitor peatlands over time, accurate higher tier emission factors, and of course institutional institutional frameworks for reporting and verification. And many of these MRV systems do need to be built from the ground up and harmonized with the architectures that are already in place at the national level. FAO and working with UNEP very closely, we're supporting the development, and others supporting the development of these peatland monitoring systems in the Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Peru, Uganda, Rwanda, and at the subnational level in Riau, as was mentioned.
Yeah.
In Peru and Riau in particular, we're working to include peatlands into the ART trees, the Architecture for Red Transactions registration documents, allowing these jurisdictions to access the voluntary carbon market and hopefully unlock much more finance for peatland conservation and restoration. We're also completing with partners a literature review and synthesis of emission factors based on a decade of science published since the IPCC 2014 wetland supplement. And so I think all of this contribution could come into our work on peatlands. You know, Indonesia has really been a lead in the inclusion of peatlands into the National Forest Reference Emission level, as well as the NDC. Not many countries have done that, and so truly Indonesia is a pioneer. Other countries can learn from this, and I think these collective platforms, you know, such as the Global Peatlands Initiative, the ITPC, the Peatlands Breakthrough, can help share these kinds of lessons over time. So again, there's many peatlands champions here. I think individuals can actually make a difference, and so becoming these peatlands champions is also a way to raise awareness of this critically important ecosystem for climate action. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you, Amy Dussel, for your talk dealing about the role of the peatland and also a link with the climate and how to measure with the MRV and the example in the field. Thank you very much. So we will now hear from the next panelist, Professor Simon Lewis, from the representative of ITPC member country, actually, because he is the head of Congo Peat project. He also professor from Leeds University, United Kingdom, and he will explain about pathway for the ITPC member country in global carbon market. So, dear Professor Lewis, the time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. We have the first slide. So I'm going to talk about the Central Congo peatlands. The next slide. So in the center of the Congo Basin is a huge area of forested wetland, about the size of Germany, 360 million kilometers square. Enormous area. And about 12 years ago or so, I had some thoughts that perhaps some areas of this wetland, because it's waterlogged all the time, and there's very low nutrients there, perhaps it's peat forming. Next slide. And we went into the Republic of Congo because this area of wetland is on either side of the Congo River, so it's partly in the Republic of Congo and partly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And when we walk far from the rivers, this is the kind of forest that we see. That's not that dissimilar from the peat swamp forest in Indonesia. Structurally quite similar. Next. And then we also see these palm-rich forests with palms reaching the canopy and essentially displacing trees. So we have these two broad vegetation types. Next slide. And underneath each of them, when we walk very far from the nearest access point, the rivers, then we found peat. Up to 6 meters deep. And then we could use this relationship between the vegetation and where there is peat and where there's vegetation and where there's no peat to use satellite data, remote sensing, to try and understand how big an area this peatland there is. Next slide. Next slide. And what we discovered is that in this wetland is the world's largest tropical peatland complex. But there's more tropical peatland in Southeast Asia, but it's separated into lots of different islands. Whereas here is this enormous contiguous area of peatland. We now estimate it's around 16.7 million hectares. Next slide. And stores around 29 billion tons of carbon. Now, if the peatland were drained and then all of that carbon went into the atmosphere, that would be roughly equivalent to the same emissions as 3 years of all the fossil fuels used globally. So when we hear about how concentrated this amount of carbon is in a small area, this really highlights it. Next slide. But what we found when we overlaid the protected areas over this region, we saw that only 8% of that carbon is in a protected area. So these peatlands are managed by local people. They provide about 2/3 of the income of peatland adjacent communities from fishing. And it appears that the fish are spawning in the peatlands and then migrating out to the rivers when they're juveniles. So they're intrinsic to the livelihoods of the people of the region. But they're also under threat, next slide, where all of the area in both the Republic of Congo and DRC is covered by oil exploration permits. There is very little exploration occurring yet, so these peatlands are intact, sustainably managed by local people, but potentially under threat. In terms of deforestation, Republic of Congo has one of the lowest deforestation rates in the world for tropical forest, and peatlands are 10 times lower than the national rate in dryland forest. So really low levels of deforestation, and similarly in DRC, very low deforestation in peatlands. Next. Unlike in Indonesia, there is not much pressure from oil palm plantations. Those are preferentially planted on the dryland areas rather than in the peatlands. Next. We have had a project over the last 2 years where we've been interviewing all of the stakeholders involved in the peatlands, different branches of government, private sector, local communities, indigenous peoples, NGOs, both wildlife protection, international, those focused around indigenous people and their rights, local communities and their rights, and workshops to try and understand if there is consensus or agreement on what should happen to these peatlands going forward. And there's a striking agreement across all of these sectors that the peatlands should be protected, but the local livelihoods of the people should also be protected. And the local communities and the governments require income. And the question is where is this income going to come from to protect this incredibly valuable resource? And I think blended finance is one option. But here at COP30, Brazil announced the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. And our analysis shows that the cost of protection is lower than $4 a hectare that the government could get from the TFFF. So in an area where there's very little deforestation and degradation to reduce, and therefore not much opportunity in terms of carbon markets, this provides potentially viable alternative to do what the government needs, which is to generate revenue, and what the local communities need, which is investment so that they have better facilities, schools, healthcare, and other community development that doesn't damage the people. So I think there's a real opportunity here in the Central Congo peatlands to have really 21st century conservation, which has local people at the center, so long as we can find this innovative finance. And it's not that much in the global scheme of things. And we calculate that if the peatlands were drained, it would take about 20 years for all of that carbon to reach the atmosphere. Now, it's 34 billion tons of CO2. The damage to people around the world from that many emissions is calculated at $6.4 trillion. Financial impacts globally of that much CO2 going into the atmosphere. In terms of the cost of protecting these peatlands long term, the avoided damages is about 16,000 times the investment. So I think there's a real opportunity here to take this intact ecosystem that people are managing sustainably and keep it that way for a pretty modest price for a massive benefit nationally, regionally, and globally.
Thank you, Professor Louis, for sharing your insight on how your project, Congo Pit project, to provide data information on pit in Congo, biodiversity, and also the status of the peatland managed by the community, and how the participation from the community become the subject of the implementation of the peatland. And also the most important thing is I saw that the data of pit carbon map already available over there, and the potential use of financial mechanism of blended system. Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to our fourth panelist. Let us welcome Professor Mitsuru Osaki. He is an expert of the JICA and president of Japan Peatland Society. In today's session, Professor Osaki will share his recent research on the Tier 3 MRV model and its contribution to carbon accounting for the nationally determined contribution. Dear Professor Osaki, time is yours.
Thank you, Bambam. So next slide. Next one. Okay, so just I want to talk about the Tier 3 MRV. So next one. Next. Okay, so this is the poster presentation at the COP 15, the Copenhagen. We proposed the MRV system. And so we established the towers and ground truth monitoring systems, and we calculate the CO2 emission. And so we surprised at this time, just rough calculation, but CO2 emission is almost similar amount of the Japanese the CO2 emission rate. So why that was very shock. The peatland is now so the change to the CO2 emission the field. So why we try to monitoring system and the evaluation system. And so in this time, the COP 15, this COP 15 Accord recommended establish MRV system, the monitoring by satellite and ground truth. And already we are doing the system establishment. So far we continue to the evaluation of the CO2 emission. Next one. So this is a ground truth monitoring system. And so next one. So okay, also we established the towers for eddy covariance monitoring, the CO2 flux, and so we define the flux we call the NEE, Net Ecosystem Exchange, and which is related closely to linear regression with the groundwater levels. So this is a maybe first publication in the world. And next one. So also we are monitoring not only the CO2, the water balance and the heat balance. And you see the forestry has a function to regulate the temperatures and water the balance. And we are surprising in the forestry very high latent heat removal, and if cut the forestry, maybe the sunlight directly warming the ground surface. So this is a sensible heat. And so the next one. So we monitoring the air temperature, the canopy, and so we are surprising 10 degrees different with the forestry. So why the forestry have function not only the CO2 assimilation and the cool down the mechanism through the water evapotranspiration, which means the water cycle regulated the forestry. So next one. Then so we try to make a model at first the CO2 emission using the satellite data that is provided by United States and European ground surface moisture data is released. And so using this, also we are monitoring the ground surface and groundwater regression in here. Then so this is also the linear regression, and using satellite data, land surface moistures, which is predicted using this coefficients. So something like the water table we can evaluate by using satellite data. Next one. So this is the challenge to evaluation of the using satellite data and ground truth data. We developed a model. So that is evaluate the groundwater levels, and groundwater level have the linear regression with NEE. Then so this coefficient put into the groundwater levels. So finally we success to evaluate of the NEE, the mapping in especially Indonesia and Petra. This technology will be applied Malaysia or so on. So next one. So this model now we are endorsed into the supercomputer in the Berlin, and so now just preparing, but maybe quickly we try to what to say, provide the data, and so maybe not only the Indonesia, maybe you can access this computer data, and you can evaluate of the CO2 emission from the peatland. Next one. So the water is another issues, and in our models, so not only the carbon, including the water balance and the heat balance. Then so we can calculate it what happened after deforestation. Maybe land come to the dry and water balance is decreasing. So next one. Okay, thank you very much. So
Okay.
our model is not only the carbon, water and heat balance now including.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Osaki. Your presentation on the new MRV model is very insightful and highlight how it can support accurate carbon accounting for the NDC and also strengthen carbon market mechanism. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our next panelist is Dr. Franziska Tannerberger, Director of the Greifswald Meyer Center, Germany. This morning, the Forestry Secretariat Interim of International Tropical Peatland Center signed a joint declaration with the GMC, which we believe mark a significant moment and provide excellent momentum to begin our collaboration. Dr. Franziska, time is yours. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll just start right away with my topic. And next slide, please. So, a few words more about peatland distribution. Of course, if we want to approach on markets, finance for peatlands, we need to know where they are. This is just a look again. Martin already introduced this global peatlands assessment, the global peatland map. But I also wanted to highlight and show these pictures. It is sadly so that at the moment our knowledge on the distribution of peatlands in tropical and subtropical regions is less well than some other countries, and peatlands in these regions can occur in very different settings actually, and you see it on this small map here. So they can be on the coast, along the rivers, along lakes, but also higher altitude. So there's a wide range of potential places where peatlands can occur, and not all of this is very well mapped. But of course, luckily these mapping efforts, as also Sandy showed, are improving and moving on. Next slide, please. This is just to show you where I come from. I'm from Germany, and this is the peatland map of North Germany. This is the total peatland map of Germany. And then next slide. Next slide, please. This is actually the wet peatlands in our region. All the rest is great. So it's a huge area with peatlands, but this is only what was left. So Germans are unfortunately sometimes very efficient. They were also efficient in peatland drainage, so they drained almost everything. We vetted already 4%, but this is really a tiny area of the total area. Yeah. So then next slide, please. Next one. We had an event yesterday here with our next one, Minister of Environment. So next. Thanks. So to move on, there's really now a dedicated political plan in Germany to revet almost all peatlands within the time period. So by translating the Paris Agreement to peatlands, this means that by 2050, almost all peatlands must be wet. Otherwise, we need to compensate some more for the emissions. And we have a climate law that aims 2045. So here we are aiming at 2045, and you just see on the left-hand side, under the different land use categories, grassland, cropland, forest land, much of it is still dry, but we need to move on to wet conditions. And there's a very strong political program now with several billions of euros to actually do it. Luckily a lot of support, but we need to look into finance. So the government will probably not be able to fund all of it from government funds. So it's also about agriculture and it is about carbons. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So what is the status quo of peatland finance? The economics of peatland finance are widely understood, but the finance is lagging. And existing financing remains largely donor-driven at the moment, with independent private sector-driven finance at still low levels. Peat carbon projects, so projects that specifically aim at peatland conservation or restoration and seek generation of carbon credits, are still rare. And there's a large price spread. So if you compare, for example, credits from Kattinga project, you are at $5 in the United Kingdom, UK penal code is probably at 25 pounds per ton. In Germany, recently carbon credits from peat vetting have been sold for 170 euro per ton of CO2 avoided. Next slide, please. So what do we have, in terms of methodologies? You need a methodology to generate carbon credit, and you need to separate between conservation of existing natural peatlands and restoration of drained peatlands. So for quite some time already, there are methodologies under verified carbon standard or VERA. For conservation, it is applicable, same for restoration. But there's regular methodology changes, and there's a new methodology for peatlands underway. And that's also been a problem for baseline setting and general adaptation. Under the gold standard, peatland conservation or restoration is currently not applicable, and also Plan Vivo as a potential standard, they have no targeted peatland methodology yet, but it's possible to propose it under the standard. And then social carbon is something more recently emerging. They focus on the temperate region and restoration projects. They are not yet well recognized, but they have a modular methodology that shows quite some flexibility, and it may be also possible to adapt to tropical settings and tropical peatland vetting under it. Next slide, please. So three things I want to highlight from recent science. One is that the revetted peatlands are really different from the previous state. We do not get the old peatlands back, and we know still not too much about these new peatlands that are emerging. The way ecosystem is a novel ecosystem emerging. This was the largest post-revetting study in temperate fens across Europe. So you see from the UK to Belarus, we compared natural peatlands and revetted peatlands. And you see the clouds here. So the revetted ones are the red ones, the blue the near natural. So there's an overlap between them, but they are already different conditions. And especially in terms of hydrology, biogeochemistry of these revetted peatlands, they do differ. So it's not so easy to make predictions actually how they will look like in future, what you would usually do for carbon credit. But there are also luckily uniform trends across major regions. Next one. So we also do have a carbon credit scheme on peatlands in Germany, the War Futures, and we also quantify the co-benefits, because this is something that is really an added value of peatland restoration, peatland revetting, that you do additional nutrient retention, additional cooling effects, more biodiversity, more technical biodiversity. And so this is also based on proxies, based on vegetation mapping. So we have developed a system that can be easily used because it should not cost a lot to quantify it if you want to sell it later. So you can use vegetation mapping as a proxy. You see here the baseline scenario, the project scenario, and we also tested it after the vetting. It works pretty well. Next slide. And then about culture. So we work very intensively on culture now in Germany, because most of our peatlands were drained for agriculture. So you need agriculture to get on with revetting. We have now a network of 10 projects funded over 10 years, with more than 200 people actually working in it to bring culture on the ground on a total area of 5,000 hectares. And this is something really new to us at the moment, because we talk a lot about culture, but we can hardly find it in the landscape still, and we need to have examples in the landscape. Next slide. What we see, we have also created a business alliance. So it is 15 large companies in Germany that have dedicated themselves to do a pilot project in agriculture, and not only to talk about it, but to do this pilot project and to use it in their value chain and to scale it up. And this is largely from the building material sector and packaging and paper material sector. So if we would bring in only 5% of the total biomass they use from agriculture, we could cover 1/3 of the land in Germany to be revetted in future and to be agriculturally used. We see these packaged boxes that are shipped, a door, for example, filled with this biomass. So we have several products ready, and what we see very clearly, all these companies want to see carbon credits, carbon accounting in their own, so under science-based targets, somehow to bring it into their own carbon accounting. So this is a very clear link, and something we can continue to work on. Also our new and deeper partnership with ITPC. And the last slide is simply to remind ourselves again that we had the Peatland Breakthrough Pre-launch this week on Monday, and it's also a great opportunity to foster our work and create new alliances towards better financing of peatland restoration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Francisca, for your providing fact of the importance of the scientific research to support local stakeholder, government official, and communities in engaging with the carbon market. We have the last presenter is Dr. Dian Novarina from Indonesia. This is lesson learned from Indonesia. Vice Chair of Indonesian Forest Concessionaires Association through video recording. Dr. Novarina will present about the role of the private sector in peatland restoration and its linkages to global carbon market mechanism.
Good afternoon to everyone at Pavilion Indonesia at COP30 in Belém. My sincere apology for not being able to join you in person. My name is Dian Novarina, Vice Chairman of the Association of Indonesian Forest Concessionaires or APHI for Forestry Multi-Business. Thank you to the Ministry of Forestry and the Ministry of Environment and also for ITPC for bringing us together to discuss a topic that is central to Indonesia's climate ambition and the role of the private sector to support it. At this occasion, I would like to draw your attention to one of the most important peat ecosystem landscape in Riau Province in central Sumatra, the Kampar Peninsula. Kampar Peninsula is one of the last remaining intact peatland forest landscape in Indonesia, containing one of the last lowland tropical peat forests that exceed 671,000 hectares. The landscape known as the Siak Kampar Peat Swamp Forest, recognized as a key biodiversity area, including important bird area, and a tiger conservation landscape, specifically as the habitat for Sumatran tiger, which categorized as a critically endangered by IUCN. Within this landscape, APHI members operate responsibly, including the two big pulp and paper companies, April Group and APP Group. Geographically, the Kampar Peninsula lies only about 100 kilometers from Singapore, yet the landscape itself is larger than the country. So, why the Kampar Peninsula is so special? In the Kampar Peninsula, the existence of forest plantation played a crucial role in this approach. As you can see from the picture, this is what we call the production protection landscape approach, where sustainable fiber production and natural peat forest conservation are managed within one integrated landscape. The plantation areas function as a physical buffer that helps shield the natural peat forest from external pressures such as illegal logging, encroachment, forest fire, and wildlife poaching. This approach promotes sustainable practices that balance economic growth with environmental protection, as well as maintains ecosystem services such as water regulation and also carbon storage. This approach is implemented through careful spatial planning, covering high conservation value assessment at the landscape level, zoning, regulatory assessment, as well as compliance with sustainability principles. This is the type of landscape approach implemented by APHI members operating in key peatland landscape like Kampar Peninsula. In this landscape, the production protection approach directly contributes to several elements of Indonesia's Follow Net Sink 2030, including forest plantation development, sustainable forest management, biodiversity conservation, and peat restoration and hydrological protection, reduction of forest deforestation and degradation in peatlands. These elements together support emission reduction and long-term ecosystem resilience. The map shows the phased development of forest plantation areas in Kampar Peninsula. Development progressed gradually from 2002 onward following the development of concession permit issued by the Ministry of Forestry, creating a conservation supporting ring that remains protected today. As shown on the screen, this phased development forms a ring-like configuration over time, creating a natural buffer around the conservation areas in the center, both those concessions with ecosystem restoration license managed by company, and conservation areas managed by the government, such as wildlife reserve and national park. The green blocks you see represent acacia plantation areas established specifically for peatland conditions. The map illustrates the diversity of peatland ecosystem type within the conservation areas in Kampar Peninsula. These include mixed swamp forests, deep peat domes, and other characteristic tropical peat ecosystems. This ecological variety, combined with the surrounding peat plantation, enrich the Kampar Peninsula as a multifunction landscape, supporting high biodiversity, maintaining carbon stock, and strengthening the overall resilience of the peat ecosystem. This is an example of a carbon project implemented by one of APHI's members, the Restorasi Ekosistem Riau or RER. The initiative is located in the Kampar Peninsula, covering more than 120,000 hectares of ecosystem restoration concession. As a result, the RER Carbon Project is now validated under the FERA VCS program using the VM0007 REDD Plus methodology framework. The activities include avoided plant deforestation, restoring wetland ecosystem, and conservation of intact wetland through avoiding plant wetland degradation. The project has completed its first MRP cycle for the 2016 until 2020 vintage, and RER now have more than 13 million tons of CO2 in credits ready for issuance. Mindful of time, I want to invite you to explore more detail through our FERA project page, VCS Project ID 2403, or by visiting the RER website at recoforest.org. That is all from me. On behalf of APHI, thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity to share our perspective. We remain committed to supporting the government of Indonesia in achieving Follow Net Sink 2030, strengthening sustainable forest management, and ensuring that our sector continues to contribute meaningfully to global climate goals. Thank you very much.
We have now come to the question answer session, which will take around 15 to 20 minutes. To Dr. Martin Klaus and also Dr. Ami Dussel, I have the same question to all of you. So, from your perspective, how can international organizations such as UNEP and FAO support tropical peatland countries in mobilizing global resources and advancing restoration effort, particularly given the growing global demand for the carbon stock nowadays?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. It was really super interesting to listen to the scientists who are here on this panel. I'm not a scientist and an expert in peatlands, so for me it was really enlightening to see the slides and to hear from your expertise and from your knowledge. And I'm saying this because when it comes to peatland, both protection and restoration, it's so important that we work along the chain of science, policy, finance, action, and we believe, or I believe, that international organizations such as UNEP and maybe FAO, but I cannot speak for FAO, that we have a role to play to bring these different pieces together. Because if you wander around in the swamps in Democratic Republic of Congo, and your knowledge that you have from there does not get into the policy realm, and from there attracting finance to actually do something about both the protection and the restoration, then it would be a pity. It will be lost in a way. And so I believe the role of international organizations, such as the UN Environment Programme, is to do exactly that, to connect the dots, to bring together the different aspects that I have mentioned, science, policy, finance, and the finance we need to mobilize it. We have, of course, the vertical funds, so the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environment Facility, the Adaptation Fund, and that by and large is grant financing. What is needed, and we haven't seen the presentation from the other colleague who was going to speak about how to crowd in the private sector finance using carbon credits, how we can bring that together, how we can blend this to actually get to the action. Now that is the challenge I think that we are facing, and we are working together on that, I believe, and we are making some progress, but that is kind of the recipe that I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Well, Martin already articulated it so nicely, so I can just only compliment that, FAO is a specialized technical agency. So much of what we do, in fact, is really partnering with scientific bodies. And I mean, we have this long-standing relationship, especially with the Greifswald Meyer Center on peatlands work, and that's been so enriching. I mean, not only to be able to then sort of bring that science into the policy processes, but also then, with the national forest monitoring systems and peatlands monitoring, kind of coming back to the scientists and having this iterative process. So just an example of exactly what you were articulating about this interface. I think we've experienced that with this collaboration. And I think also, these initiatives, I said it already, but I do think it's important, these collective initiatives that bring attention to the issue. Global Peatlands Initiative, the International Tropical Peatland Center, that's really south-south. That's fully very special in that way. And the Peatland Breakthrough now, it gets the attention there, and then it brings the different partners in with their different mandates and expertise to try to tackle the issue together. And I think, again, our responsibility as the international organizations is to, help facilitate that process and participate in that process following our individual mandates.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to ask two panelists, Professor Luis and Dr. Francisca, the same question. So, what is the biggest challenge in integrating research result and scientific knowledge into government policies and proper practical implementation of peat management? So you start first, Professor Luis, then continued by Dr. Francisca.
Great, thank you. The story of the Central Congo peatlands is that nobody really knew that there was a giant peatland there. And we published the paper, and it gained a lot of inquiries globally from the media. And then we worked with UNEP WCMC, World Conservation Monitoring Centre in the UK, through the Global Peatlands Initiative, and we produced a short briefing with UNEP. And then through Global Peatlands Initiative, this was shared with the governments of both the countries. And they convened a special meeting in Brazzaville, which led to Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Indonesia to sign the Brazzaville Declaration, to invest in the science to understand the peatlands better, and to protect the peatlands and the livelihoods of the people utilizing the peatlands, who depend on those peatlands. So I think that was a very good example of the science working with the policy and working with the government. And then this process has been going on for some years now, but the crunch is finance. And the institutions that can take that finance and distribute it to the action on the ground. And I think that's the stage that we're at now. And the good news, I think, from this COP is that we have pledges of $2.5 billion for the Congo Basin over the next 5 years. which is a significant amount of funding and could be used, some of it to protect the peatlands, and the Tropical Forest Forever facility, which is currently up to around $6.5 billion of investment so far. So there's hope that the finance piece can come, and I think what's often difficult is that once you start talking about very large sums of funding, which is required if you have, in Republic of Congo's case, 5.5 million hectares of peatlands, then it's the institutional capacity to be able to manage and distribute that kind of resources and co-manage that kind of area of peatlands, which is not a straightforward task.
Okay, thank you. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, thank
Dr.
you. Of course,
Franziska.
I've said already a lot of wise things about that. Maybe I would like to focus on one aspect, that is capacity building.
Okay.
So, and people actually doing it, because money alone also does not help. We sometimes see, and I think it is really very necessary to have training programs to train, especially young people now going into agriculture, going into forestry, to be aware of peat soils. So we tried in Germany, for example, to interact a lot with those people doing the study courses, because you can still find people who do not know about these topics, but also to have people who have the knowledge how to re-vet, and that knowledge is actually a lot with the people who drained the peatlands. They knew what they did, and to transfer this knowledge now to those who have to do the re-vetting, that's also a generation shift. And I mean, in Indonesia, you had the peatland restoration and later peatland restoration and mangrove agency. I am not aware of any other country with a substantial area of drained peatlands that created such an agency. We don't have it in Germany. We have like 60 different places across our federal states, and they all do something, but it's not all in the right direction. And very recently, we have started a program that was called the Peatland Specialists. So companies and like planning companies and so on, who actually do the implementation of revetting, they get additional funding to have people trained on the job, and then they have to guarantee them to stay in for 5 or 10 years. I think that is very helpful. And then also the knowledge sharing. So I mean, we have a lot of changes around our world at the moment, and we need to keep the peatland communities also connected. So from the different countries, from Japan, from Russia, from the UK, from Indonesia, from Brazil, for example. I talked a lot to people here in Brazil now, and I was very happy to hear that they think maybe about doing a peatland conference next year to bring together people. So to have all the people exchanging actively the knowledge, because lots of knowledge is there, but sometimes we try to reinvent things because we do not know others did so already, and we need to train young generations of peatland conservationists, people involved in restoration and wise use of peatlands.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Franziska. So the last question to Professor Osaki. Very difficult question because so how can Tier 3 MRV research can be applied in Indonesia, Indonesia NDC, and also please provide suggestion to receive like a potential global financial support.
Yes, for the model established, we need to more precise the monitoring or measuring everything. So this is a good condition in Indonesia. So why we are more focused at first in Indonesia. Establish this kind of Tier 3 MRV, not yet operated, but now level is operation level. So why this model can extend it to, for example, inside the Asian, maybe Malaysia and some part of Thailand and Vietnam and so on. And so this model is based on the water balance. And so why this model can apply to Amazon and the Congo Basin. And so for try to establish this model, so we also collaborate with ITPC. Harmony now go out, but Harmony and you collaborate almost 10 years and so the ITPC also try to cover not only the English or try to connect Congo Basin and the Amazon.
Amazon.
Yes. So why, if this ITPC come to good function in the future, so our model try to put another.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Professor Osaki. Very great answer. This is also, like motivation for us to have like accurate MRV in terms of for the NDC. Okay, thank you. So as we approach to the end of our session, allow me to briefly summarize some of the key messages from our today discussion. So before you are leaving, we are going to give like a souvenir and also token appreciation. Don't leave it. So, but I will deliver 3 messages from the today discussion. The first research result so that tropical peatland forest can significantly contribute to the climate change mitigation. If managed properly, restoration and best practices in management can be reduce greenhouse gas emission. According to the research, this is by 1.2 to 0.6 gigaton CO2 equivalent per year if managed properly, and also restore the degraded of the peatland. And the second, the restoration should be through rewetting and also regeneration, wise use based on the sustainable standard which needs scientific and research support. And the third, capacity building with peatland country needs support of bilateral or multilateral South-to-South cooperation in boosting climate diplomacy and securing financing for the Sustainable Peatland Initiative. Thank you for our talk today, and we hope that we can, the lesson learned can be adopted and adapt for those 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and also Amazon. Thank you very much, and we give applause to our panelists. Ibu. Ya. Okay.
This is
batik.
It's very famous. Batik. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And then next.
Thank you.
Okay, ya. Yang lain mana? Oh ini, Francisca. Ya, oke, satu. Francisca, come to. Ya.
Francisca.
Ya, oke. Ya ada. Oke. Next. Saya Profesor Saki ya. Foto bareng ya. Foto bareng sekali. Ya. Oh, sama ibu. Sama ibu. Mbak. Can we stand here? Okay. Ya. Oh sini. Yeah, maybe this one, this photograph is good. This is Sumatran tiger. Okay. Sini dulu.
Sini mix.
Mixed gender.
Okay.
So maybe yeah.
And Harun.
Mix yeah. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
And one left mine.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Distinguished guests, partners, contributors, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is our greatest honor to work with all parties in the past 11 to 12 days, engaging in discussions, building actions and programs to combat climate crisis. With your support, all the programs had successfully completed the season. Before we commence, I would like to invite everyone to sing Indonesia National Anthem, Indonesia Raya. Next agenda, we would like to hear the overall progress, the updates from the policymakers who have been working day and night in the plenary hall, and the next stage on the overall global climate policy. With that, I would like to welcome the Deputy Minister of Climate Change and Carbon Economic Value Governance from the Ministry of Environment Indonesia, Bapak Ari Sudianto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Peace and blessing be upon all us, and warm greeting of happiness to everyone. Let us first give thanks to Allah, the Almighty, for it is by His grace and blessing that we are able to gather here today to attend the official closing of the Indonesian Pavilion at COP 30. Representative of partner countries, leaders of international institutions and organizations, representative of community institutions, business actors, and distinguished delegates to COP30 Belém, Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, first, I wish to convey my gratitude and sincere appreciation for the success of the Indonesian Pavilion at COP30 in Belém, Brazil, despite the number of challenges encountered. We extend our sincere appreciation to the government of Brazil and the UNFCCC Secretariat for hosting this event. We hope that the next COP will give greater attention to the well-being, respect, and safety of all delegates and participants. The Pavilion of Indonesia is presented under the theme Accelerating Substantial Action Toward Net Zero Achievement through Indonesia High Integrity Carbon. This initiative serves as a vital instrument of soft diplomacy, demonstrating Indonesian contribution to the global effort of reducing emission. It is reflect the nation's steadfast commitment to advancing high integrity carbon trading as a strategic measure to support and strengthen international strategy in controlling global emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, over the past 2 weeks, this pavilion has become more than just a space for discussion. It has become a space for hope, a space where big ideas are born, where new engineers and synthesized, and where Indonesia's commitment to climate action is loudly proclaimed to the world. As of today, marking the closing date, the Indonesia Pavilion has successfully welcomed more than 5,000 visitors, convened over 50 sessions featuring more than 60 distinguished speakers, and fostered collaboration with more than 100 partners and sponsors. This achievement clearly demonstrates that the international community is paying close attention to Indonesia, eager to learn from its experiences, and committed to working alongside Indonesia in advancing global efforts. Furthermore, at the Indonesia Pavilion, a series of bilateral meetings were held with partner countries and development allies. More than 20 bilateral meetings took place, resulting in various agreements in the areas of climate change as well as environmental and sustainable development. One of this year's notable achievements is the significant international attention and trust garnered by Indonesia Carbon Project, which is closely integrated with the Carbon Connection Forum, seller made buyer. Through this forum, Indonesia Carbon Project stakeholders engage with potential global buyers and investors in discussion centered on trust, future collaboration, and strategies for advancing within a maturing carbon market. The forum resulted in the signing and exploration of memorandum of understanding, collaborative commitments, and concrete transaction opportunities that are expected to continue evolving beyond COP30. As of today, Indonesia has attained an output reflected in the following key achievements: Carbon Project Expression of Interest, 42 carbon credit projects, 28 project proponents, and a total of 2,754,680 tons of CO2 equivalent of interest to purchase or interest to invest. These tons of CO2 equivalent comes from 12 projects consisting of 8 energy projects, 3 forest and other land use projects, and 1 waste management project. The opportunity for the Indonesia Pavilion also emphasized the commitment of Indonesia-Norway bilateral cooperation to prepare for the implementation of Article 6.2 of the Paris Agreement, particularly for the renewable energy, that is floating solar PV, with a target of 12 million tons of CO2 equivalent by 2030. The Carbon Connection Initiative is designed not merely as a component of carbon trading, but as a demonstration that Indonesia is moving from negotiation to implementation. It articulates the substance of Paris Agreement and open access for financing of the climate change mitigation and adaptation action, which will generate positive impact to the local communities and for the Indonesian people. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, the Indonesia Pavilion offers not only climate change discussion, but also a range of Indonesia culture, dances, music, traditional attires, and culinary. We hope that this soft diplomacy may attract more global attention and commitment. At the end, with the grace of Almighty God and His permission, I officially close the Indonesian Pavilion Activity Series at the COP30 in Belém, Brazil. Last but not least, we kindly invite to the Indonesia Pavilion at the COP31 in Anatolia, Turkey next year in 2026. I thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Despite the fire incident that we encountered yesterday, we still managed to successfully complete all the programs today. So our sincere appreciation goes to all the contributors for your generosity to support in accelerating meaningful climate action and to deliver benefits for all. And thank you to all our loyal audience, both attending online or in person. I believe you gained a lot of valuable lessons and made a good connection, and I would expect all the things you learned will be a fuel for you moving forward. And all the organizing committee, of course, individuals who have worked all day and night, you know who you are. Thank you very much for your commitment, your dedication, and your hard work. I couldn't find any better words, but thank you very much for making the impossible possible. So thank you very much. Terima kasih, obrigada, adeus, ciao, and goodbye.
Cut.